Okay, so let's roll. Let me put this on slideshow. Okay, keep that 21st century teaching approaches. So I just want to give a background. I know what some of us are already well into this 21st century learning design, and we know how to appropriate it and all that. But before we even go into the meat, the main core of our discussion today, why do we even need to be bordering in the first place with 21st century learning design? Why do we need to imbibe 21st century learning skills into our students and all that? And you know, one of the things, most of the things that we do as teachers in the classroom, no matter the level of education you are engaged with, is provide content, facts, give dates, provide formulas, give research information, theories that back up a particular practice, bring stories from here and there to augment our lessons, give information as they come or as you find them. But the truth about it is that if this is the only role we play in the lives of these students, then our presence or our importance is now obsolete. And why is that? Because students can find this information on anything, at any time and anywhere. So a lot of things is changing in our educational sector, and then our role as educators also. Of course, we're going to give them information, we're going to give them content, we are going to give them the theories and the formulas and all that. But the truth is that if you don't give it to them, they can equally find it. And so we're moving beyond the idea of just being content providers to actually being guides and facilitators in the classroom. So now we have all this information out there, we have all this content out there, we have these formulas out there. There's no need to memorize your periodic table. I knew when we did chemistry back then in secondary school, we had to memorize the periodic table and all that. So many reasons now, because now you can easily Google it. There's no reason to just cram some of those contents we used to cram in those days. And so the resource is there, the information is there, it's out there. But the issue is, how do we teach students to handle all these resources? Besides that, have we shown them how to validate information, how to synthesize information? The information is there, we know. How to communicate that information, how to collaborate with information. So we know that it's easy, because a lot of times they say, oh, we don't need, the students can always get these things anywhere, but they need guidance in knowing how to validate what they find online. How true is it? Is it authentic and all that? So they need to learn how to do all those things and problem solve with this information that is at their at the tip of their fingers. Should our curriculum be focused on facts and content or skills? Since we know now that these facts and content, you know, unlike when we were in school then, the only time we could get information concerning the particular topic or content is when our teacher comes to class and gives us notes. But now we know things have changed, and we can get this information on this content, on these facts. So, but right now, what we need to be adding to this, I will use the word adding, because for most of us in Africa, our schools are still curriculum driven, final exam driven and all that. We have to finish the curriculum and make our students ready for their terminal exams or qualifying exams or entrance exams and all that. Most times our educational sector is driven, so much exam driven. But as educators, we still need to look at how we can add skills to when we're teaching maths, geography, or whatever the subject it is we're teaching. How do I fix my car? Those are life skills that they ask themselves after they come out from school. What's the best credit card? What's the fastest route home to avoid traffic? These are critical thinking put in place. These are skills that will be used. Should I buy or rent when it comes to making decisions about their life? My connecting flight is cancelled. What do I do now? We are talking about problem solving and all that. So these are questions that arise as they grow. These are questions that arise as they engage with the society. So how would your students answer these questions after they come out of your classrooms? Have you asked them? So one of the ways to ensure that they don't find themselves outside the classroom or outside the educational sector and they are lost at what to do, because some people say, oh, most times now our students are in school to get a certificate and not an education, because it is expected that education prepares you for the society. and makes you kind of integrate with the society easily. So that is why there's been this push for the 21st century skills, because right now, these are transferable skills that you can use in any sector, anywhere you find yourself, be it the classroom or the boardroom. These are skills that are needed. These are skills that are required. And the onus falls on us as educators or teachers to find a way to integrate this 21st century learning design curriculum into our regular teaching of our subjects. Yeah, they're not like stand-alone. This is as a matter of fact, by the time you get to know these skills and how to integrate them into your classroom, they become, what will I say? They become invincible. That's the word. They become invincible. You begin to do these things even without realizing that you are actually imbibing these skills in them. And so it's necessary for us to have an understanding, a deep understanding of how the skills work in the classroom, what they look like in the classroom, and how we can help develop our students on these skills. And so basically, like we've seen, the skills are knowledge building, collaboration. Now, there are more than, this is actually being adopted from the Microsoft Educational Center 21st Century Learning Design skills. So we'll be just focusing on this. And I know for the nomination, which I had also done, there are aspects of it that require you to put up an activity and then state what skill you employed there, what skill you integrated there, and what level of skill. So we have those 6 main skills. Knowledge building, where students are required to build knowledge and use interdisciplinary knowledge in the activity. You have collaboration, where they have shared responsibility. We'll be looking at these skills one after the other as we go into this discussion, and then see how it is applied, and at what level will you say you're integrating, at level 1 or level 2. So we'll be picking the skills one after the other. And the first one we'll be looking at is knowledge construction. So knowledge construction happens when students do more than reproduce what they have learned. So for instance, we know that a lot of knowledge construction is not happening in our classrooms these days, except for teachers who are aware about this and making their students go beyond what was given to them. You find teachers who pride themselves in the fact that if you give me back what I gave you in total, you get 100%. I had those kind of lecturers when I was actually in school. If you can just get to memorize their notes line for line, page for page, you are certain to get an A in that course. And then I also had this particular teacher lecturer who, she didn't want you giving her back what she gave you. And so most times, copying her notes, or she actually gave notes in class, she comes to discuss topics, you expect that you go do wide reading and build your note. And then if you are able to show that you have pulled in from different sources, and then you'll be impressing her, and definitely you'll be getting an A in that course. So I had experiences with those different kind of lecturers. And I know that when you ask your students to give you back what you gave them, and then they are not producing any knowledge, their knowledge needs to go beyond just generating ideas from the notes that you have given them to understanding things that are new to them. So you've taught them about, for instance, water cycle, and they can apply that to Greek, and they can, see a scenario and link it up with a classroom topic and relate it to something else, and then merge it. We're going to more of that practical discourse as we go along, but that it's going beyond just what you have, the content you have given them. The skill of knowledge constructions are often considered critical thinking. So, okay, this and this gives me this. What if I add C to it? What would happen? If I remove B from it, what would happen? Okay, I learned for instance, that in the let me give an example here. For instance, in some of our cultures, during a particular season, okay, for instance, yes, like that. For instance, you have a math class, and no, you have an agri class rather, and you understand from your studies in social studies or geography, that this is the kind of weather that happens at a particular time, and in your agri class, you understand that, okay, for this plant to grow, it needs this kind of weather, it needs this kind of climate, this kind of sunshine, this amount of rain. And so you can apply what you have learned from your geography class into your agri class. That is when we say it is interdisciplinary. And then it doesn't only stop there. So now with your mathematics, where you have studied probability, you can now use your understanding of probability to now gauge, okay, how much harvest will I have if apply my knowledge from geography, I plant at this particular time when I know that the climate or the weather would be conducive for such a plant. And so the best time to plant will be, for instance, in July, where rains are high, which that was what you learned in geography. But you know that this particular plant requires a lot of rainfall. So you have used the knowledge of geography and applied it in agric. And then after applying it in agric, now you're not bringing in mathematics, your understanding of probability, and you're saying, okay, what can I estimate is my harvest from here? So you can see, and you can say, okay, if I plant this and this, it gives me 14 bags instead of. So here you see an activity that has actually pulled in from the knowledge from geography, from agric and maths. So when you do that, then the students are actually constructing knowledge, and that knowledge is interdisciplinary because it has been pulled from different subject areas. So knowledge construction happens when students go beyond just reproducing knowledge. So it's beyond just the content they get in classroom. They are able to pull from different areas and build on that rudimentary knowledge that was given to them in the classroom. They are able to generate ideas and understanding that are new to them at their age or level. And of course, knowledge construction, you have things when you go to the higher Bloom's taxonomy of interpreting, analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating information and ideas. So when you actually apply the higher order thinking skills, then we know that a form of knowledge construction is taking place. So these activities should take the bulk. So when you're doing an activity in class, if that is the focus of your class activity, knowledge construction, then it should actually take a substantial portion of the mark for that particular activity. Knowledge construction should be the focus of that activity. So that is a bit for knowledge construction. So let's look at, please, if I'm going too fast, please let me know. I know that we have a time limit and I really don't want to exceed the time. I know we have a lot also to talk about. But then let's look at
your pace is okay, Kemi. Your pace is very much in order.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the feedback. So this is a rubric. So when we get to knowledge construction for each of this learning design for these 21st century skills, we have the rubrics. So rubrics is a guide to show you, okay, at what level are you integrating knowledge construction? Or what level are you, at what level did this activity of yours get to? And if you look at the nomination also, you are during the activity upload, you are told not only to state which 21st century learning skill you're using, but also what level of engagement it is. So for instance, this is a rubric for knowledge construction. No, so rubric 1 said the learning activity does not require students to construct knowledge. So at that point in time, that means at level 1, there is no level knowledge construction taking place. They're just reproducing the information you gave them or using the procedure that you have given them as a teacher. So for level 2, which is the level where you begin to engage on knowledge construction, you see, it does require students to construct knowledge by basically using the Bloom's taxonomy, okay, interpreting what they have read, analyzing the data you gave to them, synthesizing information, evaluating responses and all that. So that is a level of knowledge construction, but that is just at the basic level. It's not because that is the main requirement for that activity. So you go to level 3, the learning activities may require is knowledge construction. That is actually the 21st century learning skill you want to drive at that point in time. But it does not require students to apply their knowledge in a new context. So yes, we are doing some form of knowledge construction, but not in a new context, you know, like the explanation I gave to you where you pull geography into agric and then added maths and all that, you know. So they're not using it to, they are building knowledge, yes, maybe by synthesizing, analyzing, and the rest. Of course, that is the main activity you want them to do, but not really on a new context. Then at level 4, they're applying their knowledge in a new context. But the learning activity does not have learning goals in more than one subject. So, for instance, going back to the example I gave, where they have applied their knowledge of geography and their knowledge of maths into their subject of agric. So yes, knowledge construction has taken place, but if as a teacher, the assignment you gave to them or the project you gave to them was basically to rate them on the performance of their crop after planting, then the focus simply is still on agric. But if you wanted to see their knowledge of geography, if you wanted to see their knowledge of mathematics, maybe probability and all that, then you are at level 5 where it is interdisciplinary. So sometimes, like for instance, let me give you something else that would be at level 5. So for instance, maybe your students analyze data that you pulled out from maybe real life data, maybe population data or health issue, you just picked out and they did the analysis and they used their knowledge of maybe social studies or health studies or something, one of the subjects you're taking, to produce construct a new knowledge put it in a new context. And so while you are grading, now you ask them now to get the information that they have made, the proposals for maybe the new context in which their knowledge will be applied to, and you've asked them to write a letter to, for instance, the local government chairman or the director of the health institute or whatever it is, from the using the information they have gotten. Once they do that, and you are not only scoring them on their data analysis, but you're also scoring them on their writing skills. Now you're looking at their grammar and all that. You're looking, so that is English and maths being scored, then that is interdisciplinary. So your goal is more than one subject. So that is at level 5, and I hope that is clear. So basically, that is what knowledge construction is, and that is how you apply the rubrics for knowledge construction. So let's move on to another learning skill, collaboration. So the collaboration rubrics examines whether students are working with others on the learning activity and the quality of that collaboration. So the quality of that collaboration is actually what signifies whether it's collaboration that's really taking place or not. I remember most of us have been in school and then we've been putting groups and giving group projects, and everybody gets to write down their names as members of that group, but you have only 2 people or 3 who actually complete the project and submit on everyone's behalf. So that is group projects, but that is not collaboration. So in collaboration, students learn the skills of negotiating, and why it's important for us to actually look at teaching our students how to collaborate, and because beyond that, the skills of negotiation, conflict resolution, there's no how you work together with people that you will not have some form of disagreement. You learn how to solve such disagreements. You learn how to distribute tasks. You learn how to listen to other ideas. It's a whole lot that our students can take away from collaboration once we do it properly. So the question we ask at collaboration is, are students required to share responsibility and make substantive decisions with other people? And is their work interdependent? So he says their work interdependent. That means if somebody does not complete his own part of the project, then it cannot be completed. For collaboration, students work together to discuss an issue, solve a problem, or create a product. So this is ways that you can put your students together to collaborate, either discuss over an issue, solve a problem, or create a product. Students share responsibility for the outcome. They collectively own the process and the product. The process and the product, not just the product. So if they own the process, that means they made substantive decision who does what, when the person does it, and how it is being done, and all that. Once they make those decisions themselves, meaningful decisions themselves, then they own the process, and in the end, they own the product. So these decisions are ones that shape the content and the product with other people. So it is not the teacher who is giving them the instruction about how to go about doing this, who should be, because Kemi is outspoken, let her be the person who presents. I think John, because he's good in maths, make John the data analyst. It's not the teacher's business. It's the decisions are solely made by the group of students themselves, how the process goes, who does what, and what the end product will be. And they decide on that and go ahead with the product or the activity. So let's look at the rubrics for collaboration. So for rubric 1, definitely most times at level 1, that means there's no, so we don't have a 0. And so the list of the numbers for the rubrics is 1. And so at level 1, that means there's no form of collaboration. The students are not required to work in pair or in groups. And so you see at the beginning when we talked about collaboration, we talked about working together and the quality of that collaboration. So yes, they may be required to work together in pairs or groups, but do they have shared responsibility? So if you now have the work together, then that's some form of collaboration. But that's the lowest level, which is at level 2. But do they have shared responsibility? Is somebody doing something and everybody has what he or she is putting on the table, whether the activity is concerned? Then if the answer is yes, then they move to level 3. But then this responsibility that was shared, was it their decision or was it assigned by the teacher? So if they were the ones who decided who does what, then that means the quality of collaboration has increased to level 4. So the students do have shared responsibilities and they were the ones who made their decisions together. But their work is not interdependent. That means there are still some people who may not be actively involved in the process, or somebody's assignment, whether done or not, may not weigh on the completion of the project. But when everybody has equal weights on his or own assignments, knowing that without his fulfilling his own assignment, there will be a lag in the activity, then you can say that their work is interdependent, and that brings it to level 5. So yes, in level 5, you have the work together, they have shared responsibility, they make substantive decisions together about the content, the process, or the product of their work, and their work is interdependent. So these are the levels that you will consider when looking at collaboration. So let's move on to the next one. And I'm sure we are following along and we are beginning to understand this better if we did have some cloudy conception about some of these designs. Okay. Talk about use of ICT. Use of ICT is also one of the 21st century learning skills that we want to imbibe in our students. And so students use ICT directly to complete all or part of the learning activity. So there's some form of use of ICT where the activity is concerned. Is it that there's in it for all? That is from the beginning to the end of the activity is based on ICT, or for part of that learning activity, and that is where use of ICT comes in. We all know that ICT is a powerful tool to promote and support a wide range of 21st century. Most of these 21st century skills that we are actually even talking about are really being augmented, built, or improved on by the use of ICT. So when you have students as passive consumers of ICT, are they passive consumers of ICT? Are they active users? Or are they designers of ICT products for authentic audience? These are the questions that you ask when you are considering the use of ICT in the classroom. So the teacher's use of ICT to present materials does not count. So where you are presenting materials to your students, either using videos or PowerPoint projections and all that, that doesn't count as ICT integration, where 21st century skill, because the students do not have control over the ICT use themselves. We're talking about when students use this ICT themselves for their activities. So the big idea is that students use ICT to complete all or part of the learning activity. The use of ICT helps knowledge building to take place, and the activity will be impossible. So when you now get to a higher level of quality of use of ICT, is when that activity will be impossible or impractical without the use of ICT. So there are different levels which you will see at the rubric that we'll be engaging with, and know that, okay, this is the level at with the use of ICT with my students. Do students use ICT to support knowledge building? Is ICT necessary for knowledge to take place? Okay, these are just sample questions you asked. So let's look at the rubrics. So like I said, for the rubrics, the very, very, very lowest form is number is 1, not 0. And so at that point, there is no use of ICT at all in the learning activity. So if you're a teacher who is just presenting your knowledge, presenting content rather, or teaching aids, using ICT as a teaching aid, then that is not 21st century skill learning design used for ICT. So students use ICT to learn or practice basic skill or reproduce information. That is the BRS level. That is level 2. So for instance, I am copying my notes online. I'm using OneNote to take notes. I'm practicing basic skills. I'm reading my content online. I'm using devices or my mobile devices and all that. That is the basics level, and that is level 2. There's no construction of knowledge going on. So when students use ICT to support knowledge construction, for instance, they go online, find information, build whatever, write reports and all that. So at that level, they're supporting knowledge construction. And so that level 3, they're not just reproducing information, but they're also building knowledge using ICT. Then at level 4, yes, you've moved beyond just supporting knowledge construction. ICT is required for constructing this knowledge. So where you have your students beginning, for instance, they have gone online, they've gotten data, they've been able to synthesize their information over a particular topic or an issue ongoing, and they're able to use ICT to create, put this content in a format or in a code or in a medium that can be transferred, to others. Then this is using that's level 4. ICT is required for constructing this knowledge. And then at level 5, students construct this knowledge, but the product is for authentic users. So it's not just enough for me to have designed. Okay, for instance, I remember being on a particular, invited to judge some students' work from a school outside, and some of them actually developed the blog sites and all that, and a dummy website and all that. So all that was level 4, where these ICT products were created based on the knowledge, the data, the interviews, and all that they got. But then it wasn't for authentic users. It was basically for classroom grading or school grading. So there was construction done using ICT, but then it stopped at level 4. But where now, having done this, now you have created a product maybe for a focus group, and authentic users can actually use that product. For instance, you provided a mobile application for women who are in need prenatal healthcare, and this application is launched on the Google Play Store and all that, and other users, women in that category, can use it. Then you have level 5, that is ICT product for authentic users. So that is about ICT use. So first and foremost, basic reproduction of knowledge, then knowledge construction, then the knowledge you have constructed, you use ICT to construct, ICT is required for constructing this knowledge. Now, let me say something about level 4. If you could actually have done this knowledge construction without ICT, For instance, if they could get the information by going to the library, going through newspapers, going through books and journals, it wasn't really necessary for them to have used ICT to construct that knowledge. Then that's still at level 3, because yes, you could go to online news, online sites, online libraries and all that. But then the knowledge that you knew that if you didn't use ICT, you wouldn't have been able to build, like making a podcast and all those things. You needed ICT to be able to do that. And then at level 5, and so those podcasts that you created for your class, is it just for your teachers scoring? Is it just for submission of an assignment, or because you want external users to use that listen to that podcast and comment and share information? So that is at level 5. So that's about ICT for learning. And let's move on to the next skill, which is real world problem solving and innovation. So this rubric examines whether students' work involves real problem solving, using data or situation from the real world, and not textbook, not simulations, not, okay, let's, for instance, say that we have 4 boys, just samples. No, real life data, real life situations. So we have a deficiency of vitamins in our neighborhood. Children are suffering from scurvy and all that. What can we do? And then you go into the activity based on your knowledge from your science, from your home and nutrition, from your health and all that. You construct the knowledge. You actually bring out a solution that solves a real world problem. And so at the end, you have added, I think there was a, I believe it's one of the projects Dr. Mina did with, for this Girls in ICT and Girls in Science project did. And I think, somebody made, I think I may be wrong, but I think I remember one of the projects being, I think a snack that was now fortified with vitamins that were lacking in the children who were suffering from this particular ailment, so that when this is a snack that they actually love to eat, but then if you begin to fortify them with those vitamins and they begin to still go for those snacks, you find out that you are beginning to solve a real life problem. So, but this activity was done based on your knowledge of science that was being taught, maybe health science, biology and all that, and you use that knowledge to solve a real world problem. So the learning activities require problem solving. And you don't give the students all the information they need. So they need to find out themselves. They need to do the research and all that and come up with a procedure or a solution to that problem. So problem solving task involves a task that with a defined challenge for the students, either to develop a solution to a problem that is new to them or complete a task that they have not been instructed how to do. So for instance, also, I know that sometimes I am aware of some interviews you go for, and without being told what you are going to build, you just see different parts scattered on a table, and it's left for you to see how those parts come together and to build a particular device or instrument and all that. And so without being told, you said, so you are table 4 and you have 30 minutes. And so, you have to look at the parts and decide what fits what would this be used for and all that. So those are kind of activities. So does the learning require solving authentic problem, students' solutions implemented in the real world, like the example I gave? And so that's some of the questions you ask where problem solving and innovation is concerned. So let's look at the rubric for that particular activity. So the learning activity, like I said, is not problem solving, so that's still at level 1. The learning activities main requirement is problem solving, but it's not real world problem. So yes, you could bring up scenarios, case studies, and all that can be done. But if it's not real world problem, it's at level 2. Okay, so at level 3, it's a real world problem, but they don't innovate. In that sense, they pick ideas from what has been done by various people and implement it outside the academic context. So that it's really solving a real world problem, but not innovative. So where it comes to innovation, which is level 4, is where they now implement the ideas, they communicate these ideas to someone outside the academic context who can actually implement them. So it doesn't just stop at using real world problems that are it doesn't just stop at problem solving with real world problems and then end in the classroom, but it goes beyond the classroom, which is level 3, into 4, where this solution is communicated and implemented outside the academic context. So if that is done, then you have brought your problem solving all the way to level 4. Yes, like somebody mentioned in the chat, like creating soap is not innovative because a lot of people have created soap. Where innovation will be is, for instance, if the people who began to make little bars, one day uses and everything, in that time they were meeting the need because you wanted to just spend the night and you didn't want to carry a full bar of soap. So innovation came in when we began to do sachet milks and all those things on those small soap bars and all that. So if you are doing what somebody else has already done, there is no innovation to it. But if you are doing it in a different way that answers a gap that process or product had missing, then some form of innovation has come in. So let us look at self-regulation. So self-regulation, with self-regulation, educators can foster skills, self-regulation skills by giving students working in groups responsibility for deciding who will do what and on what schedule. So most times where self-regulation comes in, there's also collaboration in it. But the difference there is that the activity requires some form of length of time. It's not something that should just be done in a day or two. So the length of time is a basic prerequisite where self-regulation is concerned. And in most of the successful learning activities for self-regulation, the students receive feedback that is supportive. So we know that most times when we give our students activities to do, it is at the end of the product and end of the project. That's when we have asked them, oh, you have 3 weeks, you're submitting at the end of July. And then that is it. The students are on their own, working on their products. They don't get feedback in the process. And at the end of July, they now bring their product and say, Sama, we are through, this is the final product. That really isn't self-regulation because it's not one of the things about self-regulation is that along the line of their producing that project or that product, they get feedback. So there's a success criteria that has already been made known to them. And then along the line, they get either peer review from their colleagues, and they use, or even the teacher, and they use that feedback gotten in the process of that activity to rework their activity to the final stage. So for self-regulation, there's the length of time, and then the students decide for themselves what they do. They build their own schedule, their own project management plan for that project, their own schedule. When they do this, who does that, what time they need to, how many stages this project is going to be broken down to, when are we going to accomplish this, when is the next stage and all that. It's all their decision to make, and they are able to follow through with that plan and also acting on feedback to improve their work before it is considered finally. So that's really the core for self-regulation. So you must have at least a few lessons to work on something, so that like length of time. And then students will know the goals and criteria. They have to have a rubric, something that guides their the expectation of what you want them to do at what level. So they have something they need to check on back at as they progress in that activity. They also plan their own work. Who does what? So like collaboration, they make substantive decisions. Who does what, and when they do it, how they do it, where they do it. They get feedback, and they use those feedback to make changes before their final submission. So that is really what self-regulation is about. It's first and foremost must be a learning activity that is long-term. So it can be a term project, or some weeks or days. So it's there, and they have the opportunity for reflection and feedback, to make changes before the final submission. And of course, their success criteria is known ahead of time. Unlike how we regularly do it, they don't get this feedback until the end. And so you had 40 because this happened. No. So that's what self-regulation is really about. So for the rubric where self-regulation is concerned, the learning activity, of course, if it's not long-term, then there's no self-regulation at all. So one of the things that are basic is that at the lowest level, it is long-term. So it's a long-term activity, so you may give them a term project, but they don't have the learning goals or the associated success career in advance. So at that point, then you are just on level 2. So yes, it is long-term, and they have a rubric that will guide their process, but they don't have the opportunity to plan their own work. So at that point, it's level 3. But where the activity is long-term, you have the learning goals and the associated success career. They have it already in advance, and they have the opportunity to plan their own work and the opportunity to revise their work based on feedback. Then you are at level 4. So basic level 2, it's long-term, no goals, no success career, no rubric. Level 3, long-term, there's rubric, but they don't have the opportunity to plan their own. So that's at level 3. But at level 4, they have the opportunity to plan their work and also use feedback to improve their work even as they do their work. So that is at level 4. Awesome. Okay, yes, thank you, Dr. Mena. Plan, do, reflect, review, revise. That just captures it very beautifully. And so let's go on to the next one, which is skilled communication. So you want to ask yourself, are students required to communicate their own ideas? Must their communication be supported with evidence or designed in a particular audience in mind? So these are the kind of questions you're asking when you're looking at skilled communication. So in these rubrics, the focus is not on the informal classroom talk, Students are talking to you, talking at you, but instead the focus is on activities that require students to articulate their ideas in a permanent form. So either a presentation, a podcast, a written document, an email, a performance, which will be considered, so you're asking them to present their ideas in a kind of form, in a medium, not just the normal talk, classroom talk that is being done. And it's okay, yes, you're communicating, but now we're looking at skilled communication. And so for skilled communication happens when these ideas are produced using extended communication, like a video, a podcast, not just SMS or tweets or whatever. And then they're produced using multimodal so like a photo in a blog, multimodal media in the creation of this idea or in the build of this idea or presentation. And of course, they provide evidence to support their claim. So this is another one that is very key. So you won't just present and say, oh, in Nigeria, 75% of the women don't go to work. There must be data source. Where did you get that information for? Quoted, referenced, whatever it is. So there's evidence to support their claims. In presenting skill communication, there has to be that and all that. So, and then of course, the communication that they are building is meant for a specific audience. So I will give an example right now. For instance, you are the literature teacher and you are taking, okay, let me use Shakespeare, which is common to most of us. And so beyond just learning the vocabulary, the character and all that, and analyzing each of the character and the rest. So you now want to, having gone through that class, you want your students to communicate what they have to a particular audience. And so you want to do, so when you say, for instance, a specific audience, so now if you want to, under skilled communication, for instance, if your audience is for maybe the Kenya, a particular Kenyan community, if your students are able to take that play and perform it in either the Kenyan dialect or in a dialect that will take it away from the historic Western British language, you know, whence comments that one, down to the language you have encoded it in the language that that particular audience can receive, then that's where when we talk about communicating to a particular audience. So there you have in mind who you're addressing your communication to, and you have designed it in a way that suits that audience. So that's where when we talk about skill communication. So let's look at the rubric concerning skill communication. And so are students required to produce extended or multimodal communication? So if there's nothing like that, so it goes beyond, like we said, classroom discussions. They have to produce something. They have to put this information in a medium as a presentation in a permanent format. So when you have your students are required to do that, then you are in level 2. They are required to produce the extended communication or multimodal communication, but they don't really have to produce supporting evidence, or they are not designing their work to a particular audience. So that's basic level 2. That's basic where this is available. And then level 3, it's yes, they are required to produce extended communication or multimodal communication, and they are required to provide supporting evidence. So they must explain their ideas or support with a thesis, their thesis with facts or examples. So if you have 2 of that, then you're level 3, or they are required to design their communication for a particular audience. So if you have the extended communication and supporting evidence, that's level 3, or extended communication and communication to a particular audience, that's level 3. So, but not both of them. When you have both of them in the particular activity, then you are at level 4, which is the highest point for skilled communication. So extended, they're producing their extended communication and multimodal communication using different kind of media in building their content, and then they are required to provide supporting evidence. So that's level 3. If they are required to provide both supporting evidence and communicate a particular audience, that's level 4. But either providing supportive evidence or particular audience with the then that is just level 3. So I think that is that about extended skilled communication. And so this is just a snippet of the summary of all that we have said so far. Collaboration, are students required to share responsibility? Are they required to make substantive decisions with other people? And is their work independent? So if you can answer yes to these questions, then collaboration is existent in the activity. Are the students required to construct knowledge and apply the knowledge that they have constructed? And is this knowledge interdisciplinary? If you answer yes to these questions, then you know knowledge construction has taken place. And this knowledge construction, does the learning activity require solving authentic real-world problems and not just examples and all that? So if it's yes, then at what level now, having done that, are these solutions implemented in the real world, which is, of course, the highest level of problem solving and innovation? And then if you answer yes to that, you know that you can there's problem solving in that activity. And then if you look at the activity and you see that it's a long-term activity, and then the students are left to plan and assess their own work and revise their own work based on feedback, then you have self-regulation being done there. And then, of course, use of ICT. We've said they're not just passive consumers of ICT, but they're active users or designers of an ICT product. Then you know that ICT has been used for learning. And finally, we talked about skilled communication. Are they required to communicate their own ideas regarding a concept or issue? And must their communication be supported with evidence and designed with a particular audience in mind? So if you can answer yes to these questions, then you have skill communication. So I guess this is kind of wraps up the 21st century learning design. And I hope I've done a little justice to this discourse this evening. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. That is not little justice, Daktari. So, Dr. Kemi, if you hear me say Daktari, that is how we call doctors here in Kenya.
I know, I'm used to it.
Yeah, so that is not little justice. You did this in record time. I remember the first time I did such a presentation, it took me over 2 hours because explaining those rubrics, it wasn't a very easy task. So, dear colleague teachers, that is presentation from our guest all the way from Nigeria, Dr. Kemi. She has tried to break down into digestible forms this concept of 21st century learning design. Just to wrap up what she said is that from today henceforth, anytime you are using a PowerPoint presentation in your class, you are showing your students a video, don't pat yourself on the back and say, I am integrating ICT. We want that to move from the teacher, and now it should be the learner using ICT to learn, right? Daktari?
Yes.
Very well. Daktari has also told us that if you set an exam where your students are giving you back your notes, you are still on level 1 of knowledge creation. You are failing the students. So, of course, how we are going to set our exams depends largely on how the lessons have been. Throughout the lessons, have we been encouraging students to be critical thinkers, or we just encourage them to regurgitate knowledge? The one we give them is what we want back. She has also told us about self-regulation. And I think this is an aspect most of us have not been looking keenly into. We think that self-regulation probably is for students in higher levels of learning, post-high school. But this is something we should train our students early enough. That if I give you a project for a one term, can you plan yourself on how you're going to do the project so that by the end of the term, you're able to submit your project? Of course, throughout the term, feedback is required from the teacher. Problem solving, let them get the knowledge in class, but can that knowledge be used to solve problems in the world? And I think that is where innovations will come from. So thank you very much, Daktari. And I now would like to invite fellow colleague teachers, in case we have questions for Daktari, please. It's your turn. We can have like 10 minutes of questions. Felix, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm waiting for the colleague educators to raise some questions or even comments. I think it's welcome for us to do so.
Yeah, Daktari has a question. Dr. Maina, please.
No, I'm sure he has a comment or he wants to add to all I've done. He can't be asking me a question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kemi, for the amazing, simplified approach that you have presented. It's a sort of a question which will guide us to understand better. Some of us who don't understand the rubric. For example, in level 3 and 4, each of them has 3 indicators. How will I place myself if in level 3 I am scoring one of the indicator, but I'm also scoring the other 2 indicators in level 4? Maybe if you clarify that, because it's something people struggle with in terms of rubric, placing yourself in those 4 levels. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And thank you for your amazing presentation.
Okay, so let me just use, for instance, the skilled communication, which was the last one we looked at, I believe. If, for instance, you look at the activity, and like we said, where there is no need for them to extend the communication or present the ideas in any way, then you know that that's level 1, where skill communication is concerned, it is not in existence. And so, so if you look at the activity and you say, okay, this activity, the students were required to make a PowerPoint presentation concerning their findings of maybe a particular habitat. So the fact that they are required to create an extended kind of communication, and then use the multimedia modes where they have text, videos, and all that, then if that means you are in level 2. So that means there is extended communication happening. Now we said, okay, moving beyond level 2 to level 3, you'll note that skill communication has 4 levels. So moving beyond level, you look now at the activity. Did these children, did they back up their findings with their source and all that? Was there references, or did they cite citations and all that? Was it required, or what is it in that activity? Was it in the presentation of their idea? Was it just wishful thinking or assumptions, or they really had facts? For instance, quoting things like UNICEF 2019 stated that this, and all that. So if that is in existence, then that is level 3. So now, yes, they did create a PowerPoint presentation, which is level 2, but then they've gone beyond that to actually cite their sources, give evidence to the fact that they are presenting. So that is level 3. So for instance, skill communication, we said well, I'm using skill communication because at level 3, it can be either or. So there will be 2 more things. So either the first one, and then the second one is either they now made this presentation, like I gave an example, for a particular audience. So if the particular audience was in the mind and they coded that presentation or that idea to suit a particular audience. So where it is either or, you have it at level 3. But where all that is in existence, the facts are there, and it is designed for a particular audience, then you have it at level 4, which is the highest level of skill communication. So what you really need to do is look at, okay, what are the things that are required to say this particular skill has been used? And then you now look at the activity. You ask yourself, is this evident? If it's evident, okay, then I'm at level 2. And then you look at the next one. Is this added to it? Okay, then I'm at level 3. You know, is that added to it? Then I'm at level 4.
Thank you, Doc, for the filling the cup approach, because that is what people miss in terms of placing performance. Thank you very much. I am satisfied now.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, that is a happy student. Yeah, thank you. Any other question? Yeah, I was told that if you finish your session and there is no question, it could mean 2 things.
That I've done well.
That you've done very well, or
no, I don't want to believe that. Oh, they didn't understand. I would like to believe that I did very well. Well,
you did very well. We have. I see you have another teacher who wants to validate that you really did very well. Mary Kisach, please.
So thank you very much, Dr. from Nigeria. This is my first time to attend this session, and I'm very happy. For at least now I know that as a teacher, I'm not supposed to handle the ICT gadgets, because in our classes, we normally say when you present your lesson in the PowerPoint projection and you prepare the lesson plan and the scheme of work using the, we normally say that we are integrating ICT. Today, I'm surprised that is not ICT integration. So, for example, now if we are handling learners who are in, let's say in Kenya, we now have grade 1, 2, 3. Those are learners who do not yet know how to use the ICT tools in their learning. then when the teacher does that, you say that that is not ICT integration. How well can we handle those learners?
Let me clarify something. So what we are looking at right now is the 21st century learning design. And so the focus of what we are discussing now is activities for the kids. So in one of the, during the Kahoot, there was the SAMR alphabets that were shared. And I remember Felix saying that you get into that later. So because you have different frameworks for technology integration. So when we are looking at technology integration in teaching, so you can say yes, using your projections and sharing your screen, showing videos and all is a level of technology integration in the classroom for teaching. And so, for instance, if you are using you are projecting your notes, that will fall under S, which is substitution from that model, from the SAMR model. So, which is substitution. So you are taking your hard copies and you're making them into digital copies for access for the students as a teacher. That is a form of technology integration, but that's still very basic, which is at the substitution level. Then you have the augmentation, you have the modification, and of course, but that's not the focus of today. So the focus of today, basically, it's about the students' activities, they are learning. So when we're talking, please don't confuse. You are doing a good job actually even beginning to integrate at any level in the first place, even if at the substitution level. But today's focus, we are looking at learning design. So the focus on the students, the activities that the students are required to do. And so that's why we say that is not ICT use when it is the teacher who is using it, because the focus here is on learning activities for the students. I hope that makes it clear.
Oh, that is very clear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, very you. I know you are doing a good job. We are preparing, struggling to prepare the PowerPoint slides, looking for nice videos.
Lina, we cannot clearly hear you.
You guys are doing a wonderful job. But I was just inciting you that next. Felix, then perhaps you can take over if my network is not very strong.
You are just back in time.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was just telling Mary, the one who has just asked a question, that she's doing very well. If she's using the PowerPoint slides, she's looking for relevant videos to provide multimodal experience to the learners. But I was inciting her to now ensure that the learners are also involved in using the ICT, because digital literacy is one of the skills that we expect the learners to come on with. We don't want our learners after Form 4, they start looking for where to do computer. Yes, so dear colleagues, it seems we don't have much questions. I think our guest was very clear. Our guest is a very good teacher. She started from the known to the unknown. And by the end of, so that he can probably give us a vote of Hello, Felix.
Felix, you're muted.
Yeah, he's muted. We can't hear him.
I was just saying, Lina, you are breaking a lot at that time. And then when you muted and came back, you are fine. I think I know the secret now.
Very well. So I was just handing the mantle back to you.
Please come back again. Lina, you are on mute.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go on.
Oh, I'm just inviting you to give a vote of thanks because it seems our dear teachers have understood everything. So I was inviting you to give a vote of thanks to our beautiful and brilliant Daktari from Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lina. I also sometimes I find myself calling you Dr. Linah Anyango. Thank you very much for your moderation there and guidance. Indeed, there is a lot of feedback from the chat, apart from the questions that have come. And I think in terms of multimodal approach to getting feedback from, from the learners or from the people that we are learning together, we are really grateful for the many ideas you're getting from, rather the feedback that we're getting. So Dr. Kemi, we really are grateful as a country, as members of this community. We have a community in Kenya called the MIE community in Kenya, and we always meet often. Mostly every week we're having almost 3 sessions, and for us is to just grow together. And so today you just graced us together with our fellow educators, and you really have been very articulate speaking to us. We take this opportunity to appreciate what you do. I think I should be your student in class. I think we should attend Olabisi, if it is the name. And then we can also be attentive to hear from you and learn from you. I attended a session where you have did something at University of Nairobi, and it was just you, rolling, just like Dr. Maina, who is also very passionate as you. And I think you are together that time. You are speaking to alongside each other. So it's a great opportunity for us and honor for us to hear from you. Your eloquence is, I don't know, there is a word they say, it's unmerited. I don't know if that's not the right word, but it's unmatched. Woo, I got it. It's unmatched. You really went very fast through the 6 of them. And, the focus being the learner. Normally we go once and we spend 2 hours. And Max can tell me, we go for 1 and then we go through that. Last week we went through 1 with our knowledge construction with our leader, one of the teachers called Mr. Malim Sang. That is Mr. Ronald Sang, who is also a passionate educator in our community. And so he went through the knowledge construction. So when you started with it, it was like, refresher here for some of us. But then you went ahead and you broke down each and every one of them, the competencies with examples. And so may God richly bless you for honoring us in that wonderful way. Our moderator also, Lina, we are indeed grateful to you for always taking the lead. And it was a sister's talk. We learned from, most of the time our presenters are gents. And so today it was a unique one, a special one. Yes, there was a few challenges with Lina in terms of the speaking, but rather, everything worked well. And we have been very grateful for for the 2 of you for working very coherently and supporting us to learn about this. Now, the MIE Expert program is near a close. By next week, we'll be talking about something else. We'll be saying we have submitted most of the things. And so today's session also has helped us in trying to come up with a learning activity that is going to incorporate at least not, even if not all. And I think when you start, you just find yourself using almost all of them. But it's going to help us to come up with that activity that we can help us in achieving that specific fit for each and every one of us in Kenya. And not just in Kenya, because I've seen educators from across the globe also joining this session. Someone from India was here and others from Rwanda, which is a good thing for us as we grow as a continent. Thank you very much, each and everyone, the leaders who are here, the comments that have come. You know, there is Mr. Maxwell Kaesi is a leader in Kenya, says this calls for a change of policy, especially in public schools, where learners should be allowed to bring their own devices, whether it is phones or tablets or whatever it is that they have at home, so that we can be able to bridge the digital divide that continues to bother us. Mr. Dr. Maina has been very articulate also. He's always doing that when we are doing presentations. I like his insights. He always comes and, throws that word in there. So, Doctor, we are also very grateful to you. One of our leaders, Felix Kamaku, says this was quite insightful, a wonderful presentation. David Ongaya, one of my mentors, says great and insightful presentation indeed. And indeed, each and every one of us for activity, participation, for whatever that you've done. Mr. Whitney for praying for us, Sarah for asking questions and, getting clarification. And each and every one of us, I can go on and on. It is a great opportunity, to learn from each and every one of us. Thank you again. We meet on Tuesday for another session on OneNote. Not on Tuesday, on Saturday on OneNote. This Saturday we meet on to discuss about OneNote and how we can use it to plan, to run schools in terms of administration, to use it in classroom, whether it's for mathematics on another platform, and other platform that our leader, Dixon Karanja, is going to be taking us through. On Tuesday, we have another session, will be directed by Felix. And on Thursday, we'll be looking at something else just ahead, just before we do our final submissions for MIE Expert application. And so from me to you, thank you, each and everyone. Lina, I'm going to ask you to nominate one of our leaders, Mr. James, STEAM 01, who can lead us in a prayer. If you see at that is.
Yes, I have been given the powers to nominate one person to pray, and that one person is James from County 001. James, are you in the house? Oh, Mohammed Adan would like to pray, I suppose. Mohammed?
Yes.
Would you like to pray for us? Mohammed?
Maybe you wanted to ask a question, probably.
No. I wanted to pray, but before I pray, my
Yes.
prayer, I want to hear from the madam presenter, her name, because I've not got it right. Thank you.
Welcome, Doctor. The mic is off.
Now. Okay, so to play safe, like I said, just use Kemi. So because if you want to go full, Kemi, Kemi, K-E-M-I, Kemi.
Okay, make it full now.
Okay, so if you want to hear the full, it's Oluwakemi, Oluriola. So it's more like a song. So just
nice. Okay, Kemi, enough. Thank you very much. Okay, let's pray. I'm going to pray Islamically, and when I say it, Amin, that is the end of our prayer. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yes.
بسم الله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين
Amen.
Amen.